even though you told me we were starting, first off, yes, I still am mid-bear bell bite, which would be great organic marketing if they were an advertiser, but they're not.
They're not. I didn't have my mic in front of me, and I said, I'm ready to
Yeah,
roll.
this thing's a problem already.
Yeah,
this thing's a real problem. Welcome in, friends. It is the Tim McKernan Show podcast. My name is Tim McKernan, and I'm joined by Jackson Burkett, fresh off of a trip to Cape Cod. The podcast presented to you by James Carlton of the Carlton State Farm Insurance Agency. He's my insurance agent, and I recommend him wholeheartedly. He's online at carltoninsurance.net, 314-961-4800, by Seth Goldcamp of Design Air Heating and Cooling, online at designairservice.com, and by Mark Hanna of Evergreen Wealth Strategies, online at evergreenstl.com. Little Jackie Papers, tell me something that you haven't been able to tell me on 101 ESPN. Tell me something and tell me it now, boy.
In terms of like the trip to Cape Cod? Or
It could be anything. I was kind of, here's something I got for you.
Yeah.
Was it Tuesday or Wednesday show? Wednesday show, because you were off on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday show, you came in and you said, I'm a little behind today. Here's what I think was going on. I'm going to tell you what I think was going on.
Okay.
And I want you to confirm it. I'm going to stare into your eyes and just know that I can see your soul. You hadn't seen your lady friend in about 5 days, and you were up loving on Tuesday night, and you were running behind. So many loads. That's what I think was going on.
It's nice to have Jiminy Glick join the podcast today. Good theory. No, my girlfriend stayed over last night. And no, Monday I got back super late. Like I didn't
Flew out of Boston at like 10?
Flew out of Boston at 8 p.m. We took off at 8:15, 8:20, and then you get the hour back. So I got home around 11 on Monday. Hadn't really eaten, so I had to eat a little some. Got really bad sleep Monday night. Then fucked up and took a nap on Tuesday because I was so tired, which meant Tuesday night I couldn't get much sleep. And then
that's tough. How long did you nap for? That's a big move there.
Set the alarm for half hour.
Oh, Bill.
Ended up being an hour and a half.
Oh, Bill. What time?
It was mid-afternoon-ish, 3:30. Came to and just didn't sleep great. Tuesday night into Wednesday, woke up later than I ever do on Wednesday and was a little behind. But got good sleep last night, so we're back. We're back. We'll be all right. But yeah, I was a little bit behind yesterday.
Okay, got it.
Program.
So my theory was incorrect.
Yeah, incorrect theory, but I did get poor sleep, so half right.
Jackie Papers, we missed you.
Oh, I missed the program.
I think the people missed you.
Well, that's very kind. I always miss the program.
July is always a month, I guess that was at the end of June, and we're at the end of June, where a lot of vacation. I will be gone quite a bit in the month of July. You have any vacation? You have something coming up, I feel
One day in July. Yeah.
And that's to spend an extra day at the lake?
The lake, right. Really get after it.
Is it another wedding?
No, it's a family reunion thing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
You going out of town for it, or just a...
Out of town, yeah.
New York?
Nope. A little reunion around Lake Michigan.
Oh, God bless.
Michigan area, yeah.
Like Chi-Town stand-up?
No,
Lake Michigan?
No.
Wisconsin stand-up?
Michigan.
Michigan stand-up.
Michigan stand-up, yeah. Big Michigan
I have never been to Michigan.
In the summer?
In the summer.
Beautiful.
But we were talking in the commercial break. Why were we talking about... Oh, because Cooper Flag's from Maine?
Yes.
Maine in the summer. Growing up, and perhaps it was just being a South Side thug, we would go to warm places during the summer. So, for example, I'll be gone for a good long while, starting my last show for a good long while is this coming Wednesday. And unlike my previous 2 vacations this year, which I didn't wind up taking, this one I'm taking. I don't know how I can't. I guess something could happen. But it involves my wife and my 2 children, so I got to commit, and going to see my parents. So I'll be gone for a good long while. But I'm going to a place that probably isn't as hot as St. Louis is right now, but, it's South Carolina. It's going to be hot.
Right.
And we went to Florida when I was a kid, Disney World, but Hilton Head, and it'd be hotter than a fire as a hell. But I feel like your types, and by your types I mean moneyed circles, you know that you go south in the fall, in the winter, and maybe a portion of the spring, And this is the time of year to go north.
Yep.
Those of us growing up on Tam Avenue, we're not privy to that. They don't let us do that.
Right.
You guys keep Michigan and Maine and apparently Wisconsin too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To yourselves, and I didn't know about that, but that would be optimal.
It is awesome. I mean, I was in an area you would consider
What was the weather like, boy?
in Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Perfect. Literally perfect. Like low 70s, sunny, and you get that breeze coming off the water.
Bill.
I mean, like at the wedding, at Sweet Sweet Kai's wedding, it was probably 71 degrees with a great ocean breeze coming off. We were all in full suits, not one beat of sweat on anybody.
God bless
It
America.
was amazing. Bug bites like crazy, but
How are those doing? Those gone away?
no, God, no. I got
Can
more.
I see them at all?
I could probably lift up. I mean,
Oh, what a treat for those of you on YouTube.
Like all
This is why you got to watch on YouTube. You get to see things like this.
I don't know if I can get my. I'm not
No, I can
limber
see. I can
enough.
see the shade of your right testicle.
This one right here is nasty.
Yeah,
This-
that one looks like it's a scab.
This one is bad. Oh yes, many of them scabbed all.
Have
over
you
my legs.
figured out what these things were that were eating you? Because I'm sure some of your compadres got this too.
Oh yeah, they got it as well. I think Sharon and Clayton emailed.
Oh, the
or texted in.
no-see-ums?
Yeah, no-see-ums.
See, I thought no-see-ums was kind of limited to
Florida.
Gulf Florida too.
Maybe it is, but that like what she described was very similar, like very small, like
Yeah,
gnat-like
right? And you felt the
animals.
little bites.
Oh yeah,
They're brutal, and it's usually sunset in Sanibel,
yeah.
and that's exactly when we got married. So that was a treat for our visitors. Fly on down if you could, spend a few days with us, and get bit to shit while we do our wedding vows. But you can actually feel when you get bit, so it's not like one of those things where you go inside and you go, "What the hell happened?" You're actually feeling it.
Yes. So yeah, I think it was because and the worst would be like when you're posing for pictures.
Yes,
Like you couldn't
yes.
slap for like 20 seconds. I was like, oh my God, please take this picture because I'm getting eaten alive. And I was also wearing, I had my pants and I kind of rolled up the leg a little bit. So my ankles were totally exposed. And that's why I think I got it so bad on my ankles.
Yeah, right.
Oh, it's bad. Yeah.
How'd Kai look?
Outstanding.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he looked really. The wedding was just beautiful. It was so cool. I loved that because it was kind of like me and my friends from high school, kind of like reuniting all in the same place to celebrate, and it was really, really fun.
God
Truly.
bless.
Yeah,
That makes me happy
Great
to hear.
time.
The YouTube chat is active here for a spontaneous QFTA. YouTube.com/TMASTL for those of you going forward. If you want to watch the program live, the problem is I asked Jackson at 10:55 coming back from a commercial break, how do you feel about a QFTA? And so there really isn't a usual time or notice for QFTA.
I figured it'd be today.
Did you really?
Well, we rarely do a Friday.
I know you've got a big golf outing tomorrow.
Yeah, we rarely.
I do as well.
Yeah, we rarely.
I was
do
trying to do a
Friday.
show golf outing, but maybe was it too short a notice? Maybe that's what it was. That's on me. That's how I work.
5
though.
days isn't whatever it was.
I don't know. When I texted
Tuesday,
the
maybe?
TMA group chat,
Yeah.
and but I wanted to get some people out, and I think Martin's going out of town, and you've got this thing with some guys, and I'm like, all right, Doug could play, Chairman Kurt could play, and replacing you, producer Joe.
Love it. That's a great foursome. Really is.
Joe was like sincere. He's like, thanks for thinking of me. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not your brand.
No. Maybe as he ages,
He's becoming
more
kinder.
sentimental.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while. It'll be a nice little pairing out there.
Last time I saw him, he had really long hair.
Yeah.
Like really long hair.
Let's see what we got. All right, I'll read some of the. Well, you know what I want to read? I want to make sure I do some emails because I failed to do that. This comes from Marlon's Family Barbecue, who has been on a heater, I believe, in the Design Air Heating and Cooling email of the day on TMA. Questions. Pardon me if I'm getting some of the details wrong, but I thought you'd mentioned that this contract, or maybe the next, would be your last one. I did not say that. I'm not saying that flippantly. I just haven't said that. When you hang up the jersey, what happens to TMA since you own the domain? Is it? That's from Marlon's Family Barbecue. I do not own the domain, although I guess I do own InsideSTL.com, the domain, which currently redirects to TMASTL.com. But when we would leave here, it would then go back to InsideSTL.com. Inside STL Enterprises, which owns the domain InsideSTL.com, also owns the intellectual property of TMA and the Tim McKernan Show podcast. With regard to what happens to TMA, I don't have an answer to that question. Papers, what happens to TMA? You tell me.
I guess someone could acquire it from you.
And then come in and host it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I would assume that was the only way that the morning after would continue on.
Yeah.
Is if someone purchased it from you or some sort of licensing thing. I'm not sure.
Well.
But yeah, it would require, like, if you were like, I'm done, I'm retired, and someone could just,
All right, let me put a scenario out there.
All right.
And who knows? Sound story becoming more part of my day life. Doug at any moment, and I've said it before, and I'm telling you this is the way it will happen. He'll just go, hey, you know what? I don't really feel... It'll be like when Forrest Gump decided to stop running. It'll be the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you'll just go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don't blame you.
Sure.
That's how Doug will retire. He is absolutely not interested in some kind of retirement tour.
No, like Francesa.
And he had multiples.
Yeah, he did. And he's back now.
He's back again.
Kind of takes the zing out of it.
Martin, I don't know. I didn't this time last year, we weren't even talking about Martin. This time last year, I would have said, well, there's no way in the hell Martin's going to do 3 hours of radio every day when he does TV. And I feel like he's doing more TV now than he was doing when Doug and I were doing TV. I could be off, but he's got a sports final every night. So I don't know how long Martin would do it. So let's say the three of us say, it's been wonderful, got 21 years out of it. Now it's time to move on. Jackie Papers, we want you to have it. You take care of the baby. Get hot, win the baby, take care of the baby. What is your response?
I would need some time to think about it, and I need time to find a new co-host. I wouldn't want to do it, certainly not solo, and not without the right chemistry of people. So I would say, give me 2 weeks and let me see if I can round a crew together. And if I couldn't do that, I wouldn't want it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then it just dies, despite what the Marlins Family Barbecue wants.
It dies until it's alive again. It could be reanimated by someone.
AI.
Or that is a strong possibility. But, someone comes to you and says, hey, here's some money. Can I take TMA? And you'd be like, okay. And then it's alive again.
Yeah.
So, it'd have to be with the right crew. I couldn't just do it.
All right, how about this? Let me put one out there for you.
Sure.
Because this was my favorite non-Doug or Iggy lineup when we were in this studio. And for those of you, and this is 99% of you listening to it, don't know where we are. We're in the TMA HD2 studios. Doug was on vacation. Iggy was on vacation. I believe you were running the board.
Yep.
And Wellington was in. Joey Vitale was in. Gluten-Free Perk was in.
It was great.
That was great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And I know Tommy loved it, and I was like, okay. And I kind of knew it, but I knew it needed to be the right mix, like what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, whenever Doug and Iggy decide they're done, we know the thing can go forward. It just has to be the right mix, has to be the right dynamic. It's a dynamic. You can't have 3 of me, you can't have 3 of Doug, you can't have 3 of you. There's these pieces that fill different needs. So let's say you, Joey Vitale, Wellington, and Perk.
That'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun.
Doesn't sound like you're in, though. Doesn't sound like you're in. It's interesting. This is kind of surprising to me.
I love Michael Wellington so much, but I think you and him have a really great dynamic that works really, really well. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I just know that. And I know when Wellington's on the show, you're usually on the show. And I love that dynamic between the two of you. I think it's great. Joey Vitale works with anybody. You could plug and play him anywhere, so love that. Same with Perk. She'll always work. Wild card, kind of. And I could see it working, but I think I would adjust accordingly. But again, this is not a shot at anybody. I love all 3 of those people. Yeah, they're great.
Jackson having the opportunity to grab the baton but choosing to kill the show is the ultimate heel-type behavior. That's from Scissor Me Timbers.
I'd like people to think of some of their favorite television shows maybe, and think of some that you're like, man, I wish, those last couple seasons.
What shows are you thinking of here?
Entourage. Season 6 through 8. You can.
God, what am I? I feel like they're not coming to my mind at this exact moment.
People say Dexter. I never watched that.
I didn't either. My wife loved that show, and I remember after the last episode, she was really kind of like, I don't really know what just happened, but it kind of sucked.
Yeah, the final 2 seasons of Game of Thrones. Although there's
Game of Thrones is for me the ultimate.
The last 2 episodes are.
Fuck me.
The last 2 episodes are awful.
Almighty.
There's some good stuff in season 7 through 8, but not much. So I would say to you, and then you think of something like Seinfeld, where it went 9 seasons, all of them good, And you think it's often regarded as one of the greatest television shows ever. And I don't think that's the case if they go an extra 4 seasons. And
Yeah, that's what both Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David said.
yeah, and they turned down a king's ransom amount of money to stop the show. And I think there is some, like, finality is okay. Like, something ending at the right time is good. I'm excited to watch the Ted Lasso revival, essentially.
So is that officially happening?
It seems like it's all but a go.
And Sudeikis is in?
Yeah.
Wow, I kind of thought he was saying goodbye, and then there might be like some of the characters, kind of like a Michael Scott situation.
Right. The Office, although there's some good stuff in the last 2 seasons too. But
Yeah, I haven't. We have like 4 episodes of The Office left.
Nice.
It's what I go to bed to almost every night, and I've really enjoyed. I remember one of the famous Plowhawk take, which was cited in his wedding vows. Which is amazing.
That was awesome.
The Bill Russell take.
Oh, yeah.
But I believe one of his takes, but I didn't watch it, was that the better years of The Office was without Steve Carell, and all hell broke loose. But since I watched The Office, but I didn't watch it with
Right.
the following seasons without Steve Carell.
Yeah.
It's with James Spader and so on.
I love the James Spader.
Oh
character.
yeah, God, so do I.
I remember when that first came out, I was probably too young to understand his genius. And then as I've aged and watched it again, he's like, I'm the fucking Lizard King. You don't even know who I am. He's showing him the house. And he's so funny. It's like, so there is fun. Like, it's just really funny. Greg Daniels is really funny. So there is, but finality is okay. Like, it's okay sometimes to like shut things down and not let them get stale, not let them grow old. And, I think there is something to that, not necessarily having a sequel to a movie, just letting the one movie just be it. I think there's something to that. So I respect what they're saying. Not a heel turn move. It would be in the nature of the show's legacy.
I guess it would be. I guess it would also be. I'm trying to put myself in. But first off, this isn't like something that is.
Yeah,
for the record, it was an
hypothetical.
email from Marlon's Family Barbecue. I think at the core, really, for me individually, I can only speak because if Doug's doing this show 5 years from now, I'd be shocked. But at the same time, I think if you would have asked Doug 5 years ago if he'd be doing it 5 years from now, he probably would have said probably not. So you have that dynamic, and for the purpose of something I think I've said before, but when we were deciding last year, our choices were 101 ESPN or taking everything in-house and leaving Hubbard. One of the things that Jackson and I talked about, certainly I talked with you more about it than anybody, but me, you, and Doug got together and talked as well, was, Doug is not going to be doing this, I hope he's doing it forever, but I mean, you just have to be realistic about it. Iggy probably ain't going to be doing it, so you have to factor that in. Mm-hmm. So you're at the time 26, and I'm at the time 47, and we got to look at it through a different lens. I understand probably audience members don't want to hear that because it's not fun to think of the show changing and Doug not being a part of the show, and I understand all of that and respect it. And as somebody who loves the show, I don't like it either, but I also understand it's natural. And whenever that time comes, I'll be so fucking happy for Doug.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
10 out of 10 agree, man.
But yeah, I mean, he's been incredible to work with and is obviously ridiculously talented, but also super easy to work with. And that is something that you can't just assume is always going to be there. So you have that, but then I'm putting myself in your own shoes, like, okay, now it's on my shoulders. But it wouldn't happen that way where, it's unlikely to happen that way where we all say we're done here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's highly unlikely.
Right.
I guess it could happen if I go and I start doing Sound Story in another market and move. Doug goes.
If that guy keeps winning Mexican soccer bets.
Yeah, I still haven't heard back from Bovada on this. For those of you not familiar with what Jackson's referring to, I went online last night to place a bet on Alex Smalley. It looks like he isn't doing much, so it saved me the $25 that I was putting on him at plus 6,000. And I go to my account in Bovada, and there's $1.52 in it. And I go, oh my God, I know I drank on Saturday, but I go out of my way not to fuck around with that bankroll and play poker, just in general, much less play poker when I'm drinking, much less bet when I'm drinking. So I'm like, but the last time I bet a bunch of guys who were within 7 shots of Tommy Fleetwood on Sunday. Even though I would have loved, for my son's sake, who loves Tommy Fleetwood, to win. I was kind of like, if there's anybody who can blow a 3-stroke lead on a Sunday, it's Tommy Fleet. Gives me some value betting. Take your pick of Scheffler, Jason Day. Didn't bet Keegan. Didn't bet anybody in the final group, I don't think. Keegan or Russell Henley. But everybody else who was within shouting distance, just little bets that would have paid nicely. So anyway, my bankroll's gone. And I go, what happened? And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck did I bet on? And then I'm like, oh, fuck, somebody must have got into my account. And then I go into the transactions, and it's a bunch of, Mexican soccer games. And a bunch of $20 bets. And I don't know what the point was, because as somebody texted in during the show today when I was telling that story, what happens if it would have won?
Right.
But so they haven't, frozen me out of my account. They've just closed the account so that person can't get back in there, or that syndicate can't get back in there. So I can't see what it was. I just saw it last night, at 10 o'clock, when I was like, oh yeah, I got to go bet Alex Smalley. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? So I had forgotten about it all the way until I was getting to my car today. And I'm like, oh yeah, that golf tournament's about to start. I got to go bet Alex Smalley. Oh fuck, I forgot what had happened at 10 o'clock last night. I realized my bankroll was gone. Now, as Papers and I know, there's a guy who I play golf with a good amount, and Jackson has played with a decent amount as well, who gambles like fucking crazy and huge, has won huge on that site. Huge. When I say huge, we're talking 6 figures. And it's one thing if it was a nice amount of money, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like that. It wasn't 5 figures either. But what would happen if that would have happened with him? You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, that's a...
So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. So I'm waiting for Bovada's response to this unfortunate situation. Was I talking about anything in particular? Probably not. This is the brand. We're all over the damn place. And I haven't even gotten a chance to retweet it with a cute boy gif.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Time's of the essence.
Thank you so much. Let me go into the YouTube chat here. Is there a more impactful athlete in the past 25 years than Albert Pujols' time in St. Louis in regards to economic impact to a mid-market sports town? It's from Big Worm. Wow, that's like a...
Yes. LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay.
Yeah. As much Albert, the greatest modern right-handed hitter. Got a chance to watch the best player in the world while I was growing up, and it was awesome. But football or basketball are going to make a bigger economic impact. Probably Patrick Mahomes, actually, might be the answer.
God. I actually think that's probably the answer. I don't know on that. That's a good...
It'd be if you were to actually, if there were...
Is Cleveland a small... Cleveland's got to be a bigger market than St. Louis. I know this is crowdsourcing.
I think it's I think they're
TV
2 apart. I think they're
is,
very similar in size.
I would guess it's bigger.
Cleveland's probably bigger.
19th, yeah. So that's close.
Yeah.
St. Louis, for the record, 23rd. It was 21 when I was doing a KMOV.
Yeah, I would say Mahomes with Kansas City or LeBron with Cleveland.
Yeah, I like that take. I was going to throw Aaron Rodgers out there, but Mahomes has had a bigger impact than Aaron Rodgers, so I will definitely yield to that. All right, back to the email. Well, this one just coming in. Tim, what are your thoughts? I don't know anything about this story. I know about it, but I don't know the details. On Fernando Tatis Jr. suing Big League Advance for the deal he signed. It seems like the deal was unethical, but I don't know about predatory. But I don't know about if it was predatory. And just because something is unethical doesn't make it illegal. I would imagine Big League Advance loses on a good portion of their deals, so big paydays like the Tatis deal helps cover those losses tenfold. That's from MD 2020. In my email, and you can always email for QFTA McKernan at InsideSTL.com. Anything and everything is welcome. Are you familiar with that story?
Yeah, so I remember when Tatis signed his big extension, obviously before he became a free agent or maybe even before arbitration.
Yeah.
I remember reading about the big league thing, whatever that company's called, and I found that I was like, it's kind of odd. Like this thing, essentially they're like paying you big bucks, and then whenever you get paid big bucks, they take a portion of it. And I remember thinking, boy, I find this odd for a guy like Tatis who's so good. Like, it's almost like, don't you?
And comes from money,
Right, that's the thing.
which I mean is I think really relevant to the conversation.
Right.
You can understand it if I think Oscar Taveras, for example, came from poverty. I believe so. For some reason, that stands out in my mind. I could be off. I mean, the most famous story locally right now is Pozo, who's an Uber Eats guy. Now, Pozo doesn't come with the hype that Taveras or Fernando Tatis Jr. came with.
Sure, absolutely.
So, yeah, I do remember that part. But as far as like the litigation that's going on now, I'm not that well versed, so I'll have to yield to my compadre here.
I don't know much about. I've read a little bit about his current situation, but I just remember reading it at the time of his extension. I was like, boy, does someone like Tatis, who really like his dad played in the majors, like, is he like that strap where like he wants to get paid right now?
Yeah, that part is strange.
Yeah, and apparently
La Russa was down on his dad because once he signed the big deal, he said, "No, I mean, you just stop working out." And he did. He fell off. He signed a big deal, and that was pretty much it. I get the sense there was a recent DFA, this one not starting for the Cardinals in center field today from the Reds. Candelario, is that? And he signed his deal, $42.5 million. There's still like 2 years left on the deal, and the Reds are just like, we'll pay it. I guess they recognize, they're like, yeah, he's just done. He got the money. Yeah. He's good. He's got no motivation now. That's the thing, man. And hey, you know what? I got to tell you, I understand. If you come from poverty and all of a sudden you have, even if whatever his net of that is 17 or 18 million and it's guaranteed, plus the money he made beforehand, he wants to enjoy himself. The Reds aren't doing much. He probably doesn't really enjoy his time in Cincinnati. Yeah, he's moved on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tatis doing it surprises me.
His father, Tatis, will forever hold one of the more rare records in all of baseball.
I was at Quentin's in Columbia when that happened.
That's such a crazy thing. To hit 2 grand slams in the same inning off the same pitcher.
Chan-Ho.
That's fucking nuts. Like, that is, I don't think they'll ever, like they say, like the Yadi Ueno record of battery mates will never be broken.
Yeah.
I truly don't think the Tatis one will ever be broken.
TMA is Tim and Doug. Jackson is gaining ground as an integral member, in my opinion. I've been listening for over a decade, and this current iteration is my favorite so far. Sad to think it can't last forever. That's from Brett Gilmer in the YouTube chat. Well, I appreciate the kindness. I think Jackson deserves that recognition as an integral member. I would say that as well, and I'm not saying that because he's sitting here. Both on air and off air. Also is a wise sort for a sounding board. A wise sort for being as young as you are. I mean, to think in 20 years, when I'm 68, if I'm even around, and you're younger than me still.
Yeah.
But then you're sitting there going, fuck, I'm 47. That's what you're probably thinking.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I'll have hair then.
I think you will if you stay doing what you're doing.
So that's the hope. Hopefully, at least can grow.
Does your lady express any? Has she talked about it?
She says I freak out about it for no reason.
I'm with her.
Yeah, so that gives me some reassurance.
It's kind of not a thing.
Yeah, as long as I can grow a beard.
I'm adamant on the height thing being a bigger deal than the hair thing. Now, it might have been a bigger deal in the 70s, not necessarily bigger than the height thing. But when guys weren't shaving their heads and it wasn't, you know.
when you had like a really bad, like,
when you had like the bishop, the horseshoe, absolutely, that's a tough spot.
Really tough.
Whew. In the 70s.
Yeah. And guys with their hair that they, like the only hair that they have, which is on the back and sides, grow really long,
Shot at my dad out of nowhere.
That's not a great look.
Wow. I'm going to text him.
It's not a great look.
He's going to be pissed. Jackson's going to take his PJ to his family. YHAT, was that yacht?
Yacht, I guess.
And retire on a ship. You're going to retire on a ship.
I would never, if I had all the money in the world, I would never spend that on a giant boat or something. It seems like a great way to lose money.
Wow, shot at the Lake of the Ozarks now. This guy's really kind of coming for people today. Coming for the working man.
Would you much rather hang out on a giant home than like a giant boat where you're like...
I would ideally have 4 homes. And I would adjust seasonally so the weather wherever I am is always like Jupiter, Florida in January, February, and March.
That's the move. Yep.
So right now it seems like for the riches, like the really, really riches, it's Idaho. Mm-hmm. That's where they go. They might go, Montana, Palm Springs, Buggy Whip.
Yeah. guy named Jose.
It's correct. And certainly the Palm Beach area, the Naples neck of the woods would be one during the winter. Am I missing one? I mean, I guess fall you could be.
Kind of anywhere.
Yeah.
Pretty nice everywhere in the fall. Give and take. Like some of the southern states in the fall are still really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like a lake house, man. I like the idea.
So you do. So you are pro lake. You just shit on it, and then you came back. And
Depends on the lake, but the whole lake house aesthetic. Hanging out on a big back porch, looking out over the lake. I love that. I love looking at a body of water.
How about this? Another compliment. What's going on? We've kind of gotten these. This might have happened while you did. I was reading text last week. I can't remember if it was on one of the days you were out. Not because you were out. I'm not playing that dumb shit. I'm just saying. Just like, oh, there's compliments coming in.
Yeah.
What the hell happened?
The Great Correction.
Yeah. Do you think it is the Great Correction?
Could be.
It's the best fucking morning radio show I've ever heard. I lived in Tampa for years. The chemistry on this show does not compare. How about that? God bless.
Could be new 101 listeners who haven't gotten time enough yet to get bitter.
You think that's what it is? The bunch of people with thoughts on shows that went on too long.
Yeah.
Television programs. Jackson was talking about he didn't want to be responsible for that with TMA. Let's see what we got. It's Always Sunny.
I'd never really watched that show, but I know
Mad Men.
I could see the
It's
argument.
Manchild 79 saying it went on about a season too long. Game of Thrones, 100% with you.
I'm with you.
I don't think it went on too long. I just think it landed the plane so poorly that it crashed the plane.
They lost source material, and then they were and instead of waiting. And I get in HBO's perspective, like George R.R. Martin takes forever to write these books, but he does such an eloquent job.
Yeah.
But I also get and all those actors were getting super famous. You had to lock them up. I get it. It's just a unfortunate part of the entertainment industry is when you're really good, you better start fucking making shows. And I mean, they were cranking that was those actors' lives for 10 years because they, as soon as they got done filming one season, probably took a couple month break and right back into it. So when you shoot shows like that are so grand and look like a movie, it takes a lot out of it. So I get it.
Carlos Spicy Winter says Shameless went on way too long.
Yeah.
That was an Iggy recommendation to me. And I started watching it. I never got into it. He was really surprised. I never got into it. My wife and I would watch it, and we never got into it. I don't know. It was fine, but it never really roped us in. And I committed to it too.
Yeah, it gets a little formulaic in the way that it's a big roller coaster. As soon as the family gets up a little bit, then something happens to send them down. It's cool to watch Jeremy Allen White, especially now with his fame, kind of grow up on that show. But I agree, it's a good show, not one that I would ever consider one of the greatest.
Doug's Butt Hamster. I've been listening since day one of Balloon Party, Jackson.
Hell yeah, Doug's Butt Hamster. Yeah, but I would consider you on the relevancy scale a newer listener because the show's been on.
So if you've only been listening since January of 2022, then yes, at that point the show is still relatively speaking. If you've only listened to 3.5 years of 21 years in a month.
Yeah, wow.
21st birthday coming up.
Yeah, get by the drink.
All right, Jackie Papers. I forgot there was something that I wanted to talk about, and I just never fucking write it down. God, what the hell was I going to talk about? And I really was looking forward to talking about it. Now I can't fucking think of it. I started listening to this train wreck of a show since day one of the morning grind. Wow. So, I mean, the Veiled Prophet was there July of 2004. Jackson had just turned 6 3 months earlier.
My father was probably right around then.
Is that right?
Yeah, he'd been listening since day one.
I'm trying to think. It's tough because one is so recent and one is 21 years ago, and I was, just at a different point in life, and I think a really different person. But the response when we went on KFNS with the morning grind was so vitriolic. So to compare it to when we went to 101, it's similar in that sense. I guess the difference was you had people on 101 who hadn't listened to it, but they just thought they knew what it was. And then on KFNS in 2004, and I'm not saying this is a shot at all, but I mean, if a show gets replaced, it gets replaced for a reason. They were just used to sports talk radio a certain way, which I guess you can kind of say is the same deal at 101, 21 years later. But TMA didn't have the equity that it has now. So it's one of those things I often say. Take your pick of, God, I feel like I say this about some media people, say it about some music, like Taylor Swift, for example. I'm certainly not comparing us to Taylor Swift. Just not my thing. Don't have a problem with her.
Sure.
Not my thing.
Yeah.
Kind of surprised by the success, surprised by like the age of the people who enjoy it, like how old the people are who enjoy it, because it strikes me as just being very demo-centric. But, you know, she's also been recording for 2 decades at this point, so it can kind of be like me seeing, you know, Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Being like, fuck, you're almost 50, man. And I'm like, yeah, but when I was 15, you know, that's when 10 came out. So it's a different, so I don't know. But yeah. Or media people or shows. So it's kind of like, I don't sit there and go, they suck. Because you got to, well, clearly there's an audience. It's just not for me.
Sure.
So with 2004, when we came on, it was just so different. The thing that I always enjoy, which people can't even imagine happening, but it did happen, at around 7:40 every day, this is before we came in, they would just read who hit a home run the night before in Major League Baseball. It was called the Homer Roll. And I remember joining the show, and that was me, Rich Gould, and Jennings Randolph Jr., and I remember saying, what is this Homer Roll thing? And I kind of got to know my place, you know?
Sure.
I mean, you've been on the show for 5 years, and I'm sure you still feel like you're a little, okay, all right, so you know what I mean? And
100%.
so I felt like that, but times 100, because I'm, 20, whatever the fuck I was, 4, and was brand new on it. And I remember saying this Homer Roll thing. I mean, we're just going to read who hit a home run?
Yeah. Like, it makes sense on, like, SportsCenter, the play, because I know they used to do that. My favorite TikTok account, one of my favorite TikTok accounts, is just this thing that shows random SportsCenter top 10s and just random SportsCenter highlights from, like, the early 2000s. It's awesome. And I saw, I was like, them hitting home runs. And I remember you talking about the Homer Roll.
Yes.
I was like, this works on television. I don't understand how this could possibly work on radio.
It was sponsored. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
101 did not exist at that time, so there was no competition. And hey, that was great for KFNS. That's when KFNS was killing it because it had a monopoly on the market. Anytime somebody has a monopoly, good chance they're going to at least be somewhat successful. It's tough to not be successful when you have a monopoly on a market. And that's why the ownership group was able to sell it to that group from Atlanta for, I think it was like $13 million. So things are sponsored, you do them, but it was just, I remember, I mean, that's 2002. To think like what that, but can you imagine if we just, I'd break, I'd start giggling. But if I said, all right, tomorrow at 7:40,
Doing the Homer Roll.
let's do the Homer.
Yeah, no, and that.
Like the anger that would come.
And then we just.
But that's why I would have to not look at the text inbox of the YouTube chat and then go, Doug, let's take a look at the Reds game. Who hit a home run last night? And then he goes, Martin. What about the Orioles?
How long did it take?
That's the thing. It went on forever.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? But there was a company that bought it.
Oh my god!
What were they doing?
I mean, there's some games where like there would be like probably some nights where 30 home runs get hit. You have to read 30.
Yes, absolutely.
Like in like what the like it went 412 feet.
It's just yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, JD Drew, he has 21 now. Looking around the junior circuit.
Oh god, yeah, that's brutal.
I started listening due to Albert Pujols stuff. I was curious what was going on. I also didn't realize people still listen to AM radio outside of a Cardinal game while driving. Thank you for finding us. Let's see. Not to try to drag the discussion to soccer, but City has a real problem on their hands. Midweek boiling summer night, but it was dead last night with lots of empty seats. My wife and my older son and my sister-in-law, Kevin's wife, and their son went. The only pictures I got were the two of them beating the hell out of each other.
Nice.
So I can't speak to the scene. I don't know. I
think it's just heat.
I don't know what to say. I mean, it is interesting, but it would be totally crowdsourcing. I'm picturing Cardinals and Cubs. There have only been a few years since I started working in television and radio in St. Louis where both of them are battling for first place. which is unfortunate, but it's been more Cardinals and Astros at the start of the decade, and then Cubs kind of had their run when the Cardinals were a little down after they won the World Series in 2006. As brief as that was, they were both good in 15. Then the Cubs kind of took off after that, obviously won their World Series in 16, and kind of had that run while the Cardinals were middling. And then
19. I remember the Cardinals went in September to Chicago and swept them, I think, in a 4-game set. And that
launched them.
That ended the Cubs season.
Yeah.
Like a big Yachty home run, I remember.
So the only fair comparison would be those kinds of years. 2003, they were both going back and forth. Cubs wound up having the Bartman year. Cardinals didn't make the playoffs, even though that team had more regular season wins than the 2006 team, or the same amount of regular season wins as the 2006 team that won the World Series. The reason I bring that up is, in my mind, and I was down at a lot of those games wearing a fucking suit with the coat on. Yeah, I mean, what the hell? That the ballpark would still be crowded. So I don't know if people are more aware and averse to heat like we've had this week. Like next week, the highs are in the upper to mid 80s. That's a big difference. So I don't know. And the tough thing is you can go look up the attendance. But as we know, everybody listening to this podcast knows that what is listed as the attendance is not the actual attendance. Mm-hmm. So it's tough to say. With that said, I think we would all agree that if you wanted to go back to 2019, now again, it's pre-COVID, and I think that 2020 marker is important. But if you wanted to go back to 2019, I would imagine even if they did have a series with these kinds of conditions, and so that you got to have a weekday series with both teams in the mix, and it being this hot. So those are very specific things to have happen in a handful of years, and what the ballpark looked like. My guess is it looked more full, but I don't know that. And just pulling up the numbers for the attendance, while you can say if it's substantially higher, still, as far as the people in the ballpark, that's a different number, and that number is not available.
Yeah. I just think in 2025, and I know I say this often, but there's just so much entertainment at the touch of a finger, like right at the click of a button. You can have so much to watch and be entertained by, and you don't have to spend the money to park and tickets and food, and you don't have to be sitting in 93 or 94 degree heat. Like, it's hard enough to get people to go out and do stuff like when the conditions are great. Yeah. And then you add that, and it's like really hot. It's like, okay, that's the decision maker right there. I'm not going to go sit in boiling heat and spend, what is a week's worth of groceries on taking me, my family, to a baseball game or to a soccer game. And I get that. Yeah. I get that completely.
I don't know. So I don't know. I really, it's a topic that specific to sports is one that it's like if somebody were to say, what did you think of the Cardinal game last night or 2 nights ago when it was a good game?
Great game.
Jackson and I are doing this show on the heels of an 8-0 loss. Even if the Cardinals would have lost on Tuesday night, that 8-7 win, it still was an entertaining game last night. If the Cardinals would have won 8-0, I would have said, not very entertaining, exciting, because that means they would have won the first 3 games of the series. The reason I bring that up is that analyzing that kind of stuff and breaking down, it just doesn't do it for me. Right. I don't think it does it for most people. But the analysis of the Busch Stadium attendance and what is going on, that does really intrigue me, because I think there's so many different lanes, so many different branches off of that tree to discuss. You can talk about baseball. You can talk about St. Louis. You can talk about St. Louis's economy. You can talk about downtown. You can talk about people's microeconomics and their spends, as you were just listening. You can get into conversations on safety. You can get on so many different angles, and that's why that conversation. Now, as you may have seen in the text inbox, I don't know how often you have the text inbox up while we're doing the show.
Rarely.
There are some people who really don't like the attendance conversation. And it's not like you guys fucking suck people. They don't like it because I think it is either illustrative of what they fear could be the decline of St. Louis, what they fear could be the decline of downtown St. Louis, although usually those people kind of like the decline of downtown St. Louis, which is an odd... You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know, yeah.
Or the decline of baseball, and then maybe they're older, and so then it's like it used to be this way, and now I see it changing, and I hate that. I don't know. That's because there really isn't a right answer. It's kind of like discussing religion. I like doing it if we can have a good faith conversation about it, and by good faith I mean it's not going to turn into a hostile thing. Like, okay, we disagree, cool. Not like fuck you. The Bible says this.
Right.
If that's the case, I'm out. I don't know, and I'm trying to. I guess I'll say this: when I was doing television, and I was down there for so many home games from 2000 through the 2004 season, and what a lucky time I had to be down there. I mean, the personalities, the talent, the Hall of Famers, the quality of teams, La Russa, Duncan. That team was, that truly was a Cardinal team that flew high. I cannot imagine Busch Stadium 2 looking like Busch Stadium 3 has looked for the first 3 games of this series for a midweek Cardinals-Cubs series during that era, no matter what the temperatures are. But at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
I think season ticket numbers being down also is a major factor from corporations to individuals too. And that what I would say would be reflective of the product on the field over the past couple of years when you talk season tickets. Game by game, there's so many factors. Like right now, I just really think it's because of the heat. It's just so hot.
So I agree with that, but then I go, that's why I'm trying to get, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go back to okay, and I guess I could text the cat, see if I could get a video of the 2003 the Cardinals and Cubs played in St. Louis, and I'm sure they did in June, July, August in midweek series. What that looked like. 2019, Cardinals and Cubs playing midweek in St. Louis during the summer when it was hotter than hell, though. I mean, that's the thing. You have to have all these things line up to do a comparison.
I think 2019 would be a better comparison because obviously entertainment options have increased over the past 6 years, but 2019 would be close enough where you could get a pretty decent sample there. But yeah, you could go back to 2005, or whenever you would say 03, it was just basically television. You could watch whatever was on TV, and that's it. Now you can watch anything.
Yeah.
Anything at the click of a button. Click of a button, you can watch anything, and you don't have to spend.
All right, but I agree with all of that. I don't disagree with it. You're 100% right. But then, how do you explain the blues?
Right. Yeah, that is
because that's kind of like the foible for the downtown conversation.
Exactly. I was just about to say, when people were talking about crime, it's that doesn't affect blues games, Yeah, I mean I think maybe the recency in the championship, not hangover is the wrong word, and so is honeymoon, but you're 6 years removed, 5-6 years removed from a Stanley Cup, and while that DNA isn't totally there, obviously you're missing so many guys. We still have Binnington. Up until 2 years ago, you still had Berube. There was kind of that same kind of feeling around the team, when are they going to win the next one? So maybe that could be it, but that could just fly in the face of everything I'm saying too. Yeah,
I'm enamored with it. I don't take for granted that the Cardinals are here forever. Mm-hmm. I realize that sounds outlandish in this moment. Mm-hmm. But I don't take it for granted. I'm not saying I think they're moving. I want to be clear. But if they're trends, I can't. I believe it was either 06 or I'm certain it had to be 07 actually, and I know that because I remember talking about it in the studio above the sex shop, and we weren't there in 06. So 07, if I'm not mistaken, Orlando Pace got hurt in the first game. He's going to be out for the year. The attendance already wasn't great. I think the expectations of the team were pretty decent. And I remember thinking, and saying, and I think writing on InsideSTL.com, I'm concerned what this could mean for the stability of the franchise in St. Louis, which was deemed a ridiculous perspective. Now, this isn't look at me, I was right. But when a storm arrives, the cloud doesn't just appear.
Right.
It is created thousands of miles away before it arrives on your doorstep. And in this case, it struck me, and that was also the same year where Dan Dierdorf is quoted as saying, I think it was the CVC needs to get its act together, otherwise this team could leave. And that, isn't really discussed all that often, that Dan Dierdorf is quoted as saying that, and that was in 2007, before Stan Kroenke was the majority owner. And so I'm not saying that this is on the precipice of happening, but Is Bill DeWitt III's love of owning the Cardinals the same as his father's? I don't know that. I'm not saying that it is or isn't. I'm just saying I don't know that. And the Cardinals are a heritage brand, and we're talking about television markets and their sizes. One that I always like to say that just sounds ridiculous is when I was leaving the University of Missouri. So we're talking 25 years ago. Austin, Texas was 60th. Smaller than Little Rock, where I started. Little Rock was 57. Austin, Texas is gaining on St. Louis as far as being as big as St. Louis. It is now 34th. That's a quarter of a century. It's a bigger market than Kansas City. The reason I present that for the purpose of this discussion, which again is not something that I think would even play in the next decade, is things change substantially and perhaps a little more quickly than we realize, but because the changes appear so gradual, they fly under the radar. And if you have a market that begins to gain a great deal of population and business headquarters, which therefore would have corporate sponsorship dollars at the ready, and potentially somebody like what Dan Gilbert has done, for example, in Detroit, who really wants to put that city on the map and rallies corporate dollars behind it, the game can change quickly from going, oh my God, can you believe that this team would leave there, to this team's got to leave there because this city needs a team. And so when I look at it, I'm going, okay, what's really going on here? And the reality is, I think it's a wide variety of factors converging. Doug presented the argument this morning on the show that some people just don't want to have to admit that they were wrong about the team. I think that might be a factor as far as enthusiasm goes. I look at the team personally as far as just strictly on the field, and I go, I've been lucky enough to see great baseball teams in St. Louis. This one would really surprise me as being a great baseball team. I've seen a 100-win team in St. Louis that I didn't think was a great baseball team, which sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I didn't think the 2015 Cardinals were a great baseball team. But they won 100 games in a division that was ridiculous with the Cubs and Pirates that year. The 2019 Cardinals went to the NLCS. I didn't think it was a great baseball team. It didn't, dampen my enthusiasm. It just wasn't a team that I thought would be great. But at the same time, one of my favorite teams was the 96 team, which might be the least of the Bill DeWitt teams to have made the postseason. And they were a win away from beating that storied Braves team and going heads up with the beginning of the Big Three. And Jeter, Posada, and Mariano Rivera. And hell, Bernie Williams was there at that time and the beginning of the Yankees dynasty. So, these things can happen. I always, when Martin goes, can the Cardinals win the World Series? And I'm like, who can't win the World Series?
Get in.
Yeah, anybody can. Can the Cardinals have the best record in the National League? I guess they can, but I'd give their chances of winning the World Series higher than having the best record in the National League.
Much more.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
I feel like you've been wanting to say something. I've been blabbing. What do you got, Papers? What do you got?
Two things.
All right.
I was just thinking about, like, with hockey, comparatively attendance-wise, scarcity is, I think, one thing. You're playing half the home games. Where, like, if you're like a Cardinal, like, and you're thinking about going to the game Monday, it's like, I'll just wait till, I don't want to go tonight. I'll go later in the week when there's another game. Whereas if the Blues, like, they're playing Thursday night and then they're on the road for a week and a half, it's like, well, I better get to this fucking game. So I think it's always the same temperature inside there. I think that's a smaller factor, but a factor nonetheless. And then it was funny you brought up Austin. So a buddy of mine just moved there.
Yeah.
I was on this trip with. And he was like, I was getting out of St. Louis. I wanted to get into a bigger area. I was like, well, Austin's not a bigger area than St. Louis. And he was befuddled by that.
Oh, is that right?
He was like, yeah, it is. I was like, well, the city itself might be bigger, but the metro area population, St. Louis is bigger. But not by a lot, but bigger. He was like shocked.
Yeah, and somebody who's 27 years old, I assume, in your range.
Yes.
Austin, Texas is a huge city.
Yeah. Right.
For me growing up, it was like, that's in Texas. It's the state capital. I know that's where the University of Texas is. But I guess I'd like to live there. I mean, it was kind of a nothing when I was looking for television jobs out of school, and now it's the 34th biggest market. I mean, and I think if anything, market sizes will shift both in growth and population decline more aggressively over the next couple of decades, just like I think other things will happen, as we've seen with AI, more aggressively. Things will change quicker. But then at the same time, I also, and It's clearly, I think, not a play to get hometown cheers and cheap pops, but I think that also could benefit St. Louis because St. Louis has a large amount of infrastructure that could be desirable to somebody wanting to relocate. By that, I mean a business or an individual, and get in inexpensively relative to other cities with similar skeleton of infrastructure, certainly not necessarily firing on all cylinders. Let me see what else I got. There's more city discussion. Apparently they shout "Home of the Blues" at the end of the national anthem, and that's got people upset.
I've noticed that across St. Louis.
People are complaining on STL City's Reddit that the people yelling "Blues" at the end of the national anthem is considered trashy. Curious on your guys' take on this. That's from Cardinal Cowboys Pontoon.
Yeah, I don't say it, but I Cardinal games anywhere where the national anthem's played and St. Louisans are there. I always hear it, "Home of the Blues." Yeah, and obviously at Enterprise.
But even at Busch Stadium?
I heard it.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that right? Really?
Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah. I mean, I would say it's more sparse than it is at a Blues game, but yeah, you absolutely hear it. For sure.
Huh.
Yeah. That doesn't bother me. It never has.
Too Fat to Kayak says, final city thought. In the last 3 years, it's exactly the opposite results of what you want for good growth. That first season was unbelievable, and they've gone downhill from there. I wish it flipped. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It would have been better to start off like this when it had equity just because it was new.
Right.
And then in the third year, when the newness starts to wear off, then the team...
Be top of the table.
Yeah. So I get it. One of the things, and I remember thinking this when I would sit up in the press box during Rams games, is fans get spoiled. I thought that's what happened in Atlanta during the 90s and early 2000s with those Braves teams. It blew me away when I went to the Cardinals and Braves NLDS in 2000, that with Maddox, Smoltz, and Glavine, my girlfriend went down to that game. I think she flew down there. I was doing television for KMOV, and I'm like, "You're going to be able to get tickets." There are tickets all over the place. I'm like, "This is a dynastic team that hasn't been able to convert in the World Series, but has certainly been all over the postseason for a decade." And I think they went from being so bad to so good so quickly. That Braves team that went to the World Series and lost to the Twins in '91 was a last-place team in '90, and then they established dominance for the next decade and a half, and so fans got spoiled. The same thing happened in St. Louis, and it wasn't just how bad the Rams were. The football Cardinals were also bad, and so all of a sudden we went from having a terrible football team with a strange owner in Bidwell to no football, to the Rams, who were terrible, to one of the most exciting football teams in the history of the NFL. And so we got so spoiled so quickly. It wasn't people's faults. I think it would happen anywhere, but the situation in St. Louis was unique in so many different ways because we had two teams, we had no team, and we had lost out on expansion teams, lost out on the Patriots, a little chapter that might be forgotten, and built a building with no tenant. And then was just happy to have a team, and then all of a sudden, a backup quarterback leads the team to winning the Super Bowl, and the offense is just this, you got to be kidding me, kind of excitement with like 5 guys who could score touchdowns at any moment. And then all of a sudden, that's what you expect every Sunday, and it's not the way that it's going to work. So it can cut both ways. That certainly isn't the case with MLS versus NFL. But yes, if you could have it ideally, you would have flipped the seasons from what you had in year one, where the team was great, but people would have shown up anyway.
Yes. Yeah, the honeymoon effect of that. Yeah, I can tell you, like, for me personally, when it comes to city, in America, the 4 major sports leagues, baseball, basketball, hockey, football, those are the best leagues in the world. Undoubtedly, not even close. American football, yeah, it's not even a question. NFL, NBA, EuroLeague's good, but doesn't compare to how good the guys are in the NBA. Hockey, best league in the world. MLS, 8th, 9th, 10th best league in the world. Like when a team wins the World Series, the Super Bowl, NBA championship, Stanley Cup, they are undoubtedly the best team in the world at that sport at that moment. No question about it. That's just not the case with the MLS. And it's tough for me to get up for something when I'm so used to the best teams in the world playing in our backyard. And maybe that's me taking things for granted, but that's just kind of where I'm at with soccer, with the MLS.
With MLS.
Yeah, and I hate, and that's, I'm not saying anyone out there is wrong for being a big city fan or a big MLS fan. If it blows your hair back, it blows your hair back. There's nothing you can do. It's no way to explain it. It's just how it is. But for me personally, I just can't get over that hump.
You're always welcome to email in for QFTA, TMCKERNAN at InsideSTL.com. I would like to think those who email in know that more often than not, they are going to get read. Any topic is welcome. The podcast is presented by James Carlton of the Carlton State Farm Insurance Agency. He's my insurance agent. He's online at carltoninsurance.net. By Seth Goldcamp of Design Air Heating and Cooling, online at designairservice.com. Man, is he valuable to be working with at times like this with temperatures like these. And by Mark Hanna of Evergreen Wealth Strategies, online at evergreenstl.com. For Jackson Burkett, I'm Tim McKernan. This has been the Tim McKernan Show podcast on the Inside STL Podcast Network.